right now.
Shall I start?
Yes.
Jai Bhim, and a very warm welcome to all the viewers of Ambedkar Karma. The ancient Greeks had a god named Proteus who was capable of changing his form, whatever be the circumstances, and so he could never be captured or pinned down. In India, the caste, and in America, the race has its protean qualities, which, in spite of many laws and regulations, prohibitions, and sanctions, they still thrive and proliferate. Racial inequality in America has its parallel in caste inequality in India, even though by definition, race and caste, they are not same thing, they're different. Now, the perceptions of caste system among Indians and that of racism among Americans, they have two key differences. One of degree and the other of kind. The one of degree is longevity. Thousands of years older India's caste system has had that much time to get thoroughly, marinated in the people's psyche, and atrocities that should rightfully horrify any decent mind. They have become part of our daily lives. The one of kind is the diabolically clever manner by which the Indian caste system was kept in place by, ascribing the actions of the past life as the arbiter for present life caste. The similarities between caste system and racism, few similarities are there. They can be found in the extent of oppression that is produced by these oppressive systems. First is segregation. Both blacks and Dalits, they have been forced not only to live and develop, separately, but also unequally, and that has maintained the levels of structural, social, and cultural this inequalities. Second is denial. Both the systems, they have a similar degree in hand waving hand waving away benefits one gets from accident of birth. We share, common resentment, other feelings like dehumanization, degradation, and objectification, also humiliation. Now, the question arises that how we can build the bridges of hope together by narrowing down our differences and gaining strength from our similarities in oppression. How can the US and India, learn from each other in order to solve the most pressing problems that are affecting the world's two largest democracies? So this is the topic for today's discussion. As you all know that we started this series of conversations on race and caste 4 weeks back, and today is the fifth and the last conversation. I am your host for today's conversation. I am Dr. Amritpal Kaur, an oral dental surgeon and a private practitioner. And I welcome my esteemed guests today. It's Paul Guthrie and Sir Rock Mohammed from USA, and Shri Mangesh Dahiwale from India.
Amrita,
yes, shall I continue or?
I think you should begin with some remarks on the topic that you would like to bring for discussion today, and then we will take it from there.
Okay, thanks. I'll be talking about, Dalit feminism and Black feminism in particular. Women's oppression, this is the most widespread and the deepest form of oppression in any society. Women all over the world, they have been relegated to the position of other or marginalized, as they share very intimate experience of politics of oppression and repression. Now, based on this assumption that they have, the inferior social position, they're also called subalterns. In India, Dalits and women, they are called subalterns. There are two special voices, shouting in this wilderness for liberation. They are the Black women of America and the women of India, who share a common triple subjugation of caste or race, and class and gender. Both these Black and Dalit feminisms, they grew as resistive forces or resistive movements, out of the male-dominated liberation movement of the Blacks and Dalits, and also from the mainstream feminist movements, they emerged separate from both these things. Now, as far as the male-dominated liberation movements, they were concerned, the Black liberation and the Dalit movements, they not only, the Black and Dalit women, they not only suffered sexism and physical abuse from their own men, but they were also marginalized in these liberation movements. Also, if we talk about the words Black and Dalit, the word black was equated with only with black men, and Dalit word, it has been equated only with Dalit men. So both the feminisms, both these movements, they rejected these mainstream, these liberation movements, and also the mainstream feminist movements, of their, they were very critical of the principle of universal sisterhood that both these mainstream feminisms, they were propagating. The principle of universal sisterhood, and that all women, they are one, which appears very liberal, but it fails to address that their victimization of Black and Dalit women, that was due to their intersectional identities of caste and race, and also class and gender. Caste or race, class and gender. Dalit women, they are routinely, they are molested, they are offensively, they're grobbed in public, they are gang raped by upper caste men to teach, their community a lesson and to remind them of their low position in the society. They are also demanded of, first night, these privileges with the Dalit brides, the upper caste men. They demand this kind of privileges from them. Dalit women, they are spat upon, they are beaten up by the upper caste men and women alike, and also by their own men. They have to face exclusion. They are striped. They are, disrobed. They are paraded naked. They are forced to eat shit and urine. They're kicked. They're tortured. They're burned to death. They're blinded. They are scalded. The hot oil, that is poured on them. They are witch hunted on regular basis. Likewise, when we talk about Black women slaves, they were also raped by their own masters, the relatives of their masters, or their friends. They were whipped inhumanly. Not only they were whipped inhumanly, but holes they were dug for pregnant Black women so that they could place their bellies in those holes while being whipped. They were also forced to breastfeed their masters' babies, the Black women slaves, and on account of which their own kids, they went hungry most of the times, and kids who were born out of these sexual harassments of the Black women slaves, they were also incorporated into the field work, and their children of these Black women slaves, they were sold, they were traded, to other whites in order to destroy that Black lineage. So the hegemonic, this power that white men they assume to sleep with his Black female slaves can find its parallel in Brahminical ideological, Brahminic ideological hegemony that stereotypes the women as being unmoral, not being chaste like their own women are. And therefore they can take liberty, with the so-called polluted Dalit women. The white women, the mainstream feminist movements that were dominated by the white women, the upper and the middle class white women in America, and when we talk about Dalit or the mainstream feminism in India, which is dominated by the upper and the middle class Hindu women, they always address their issues, which were more related to their domestic realm, like like owning property, or the divorce laws, or the sexual freedom laws, domestic violence laws. Similarly, when we talk about the Indian feminists, they sought liberty in from their patriarchy, which entangled their lives, without realizing that the patriarchy, they cannot end patriarchy until and unless they end the caste system. And the same patriarchy that fixes the upper caste, women in tradition, it has also fixed Dalit women in pollution. So they fail to address, the peculiar victimizations of Dalit and Black women, which are there due to their being Dalit and black, because they have that special that position, social position. And the Black feminist movement, it was started decades earlier than the Dalit feminist movement. And in India, we have National Federation of Dalit Women, which was started by Ruth Manorma in 1995. I'm not sure about the time right now. She founded this, the National Federation of Dalit Women on the footprints of Black feminism. And how this idea came to her in 1985, she attended a cultural exchange program between the Americans and Dalits that held in 1985, where she met a lot of Black women, the African, the Black women who, and she was perplexed by, their the Black women and their precarious relationship with the mainstream feminist movement. I would now request my speakers to please comment on, what I've just said. How can we bridge the, the gap between the females, the Black and Dalit females? Yes, over to you, Mangesh.
Thank you, Amruta, for drawing up these very important parallels between the Black feminist movement in United States and the Dalit feminist movement in India. I think this is a very important point, that as we are talking on today's conversation, this is the fifth of the conversation that we are having, and so far as this conversation series is concerned, we have covered a lot of ground in terms of the history of colonialism in USA and India. On the first conversation, we did that, and second, we covered race and caste as the part of the same problem. And in the third, we have seen the historical interactions between the Blacks and Dalits. And then in the fourth, we looked at the Buddhist connections between the communities. And I think today you began very rightly with a very important sort of connection that you brought up with Ruth Manorama's initiative to bring in Dalit women together based on her exposure to the Black feminist movement. I think this is a very important question that we need to discuss when we are trying to talk about working together in terms of the solidarity for our communities. And I think today we can, as we go along with this conversation today, we should focus on what we can do together for the bright future of our communities, both men and women, and how we forge alliances, how we forge the solidarity, how we really walk hand in hand, for the better future of our generations to come. And I think this is very important conversation, and particularly as you began, Amrita, on how we can build this solidarity among the women of our community and women of our community. I think one of the things that we can do is, with the help of our networks, we have a special sort of a series of our women from both the sides speaking on the issues and have a conversation, a kind of a platform where, we can exchange the ideas with our women there and our women here. And really, I think the first step would be to create that kind of a bridge as we started building with this sort of a conversation. What do you think, Brother Rock and Brother Paul?
I think that's a good idea. May I ask Dr. Amritpal to say again, restate, who was that person that was perplexed by the feminist movement here in the United States?
She is Ruth Manorma. She's a Dalit activist here in India. Yes, and she started this National Federation of Dalit Women in 1995, I guess. I don't remember the exact time. She was actually very, very, she was pained because the mainstream feminist movements, they were not taking up our issues, which are peculiar to our problems, being Dalits or So she was really, really impressed with the Black women that she met in that cultural exchange program between Americans and Dalits that happened in 1985. And that's how, she got that idea that we also need to create a separate movement, from the main the main Dalit liberation movement, which was male oriented,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, even the men, even their men.
Yes, ma'am.
Even their own men, they never supported their women when they were being harassed on the basis of the caste-based gender atrocities. They never came forward to address this issue. And also they have been fighting the male patriarchal setup, which are these liberation movements they have.
Mhm. And so that was Ruth Manoreth, Ruth
Manorma.
R-U-T-H.
It is R-U-T-H, Ruth.
Yes.
Manorma, M-A-N-O-R-M-A, Manorma.
Okay, M-A-N-O-R-A-M. Yes,
It's
ma'am.
Manorma, yes.
Manorma. And was she inspired by the feminist movement here in the United States to any degree, or did she notice that
She was
herself?
inspired by the stand that Black feminists they took.
Black feminists
the Black
here in the
feminist
United
movement
States.
in the United States,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Because they were not happy, when the Black women, they were not happy with the way they were treated by their own men in the movement, in the liberation movement. They were sidelined. So this is a very, a very peculiar point. I think we haven't addressed this point before, that women, they Dalit and Black women, no doubt they're suffering from being Blacks and Dalits, and also as women, also they suffer from the caste or race plus poverty, the situations that the poverty and the caste that brings along. But at the same time, they have also, they suffer from the patriarchal attitude of their own men.
Right.
I can quote two poets here. Do I have time?
I think we can quote the poem at the end of it, Amrita, because I think this
Yes,
is
sure.
this is very important
Yes.
discussion. I think
Yes. Okay.
there are other women like Tien Mori, who is doing amazing work to connect with the African American women there. She's based in America, and she has been very active now for last many years to connect to voice the voice of the Dalits across, including the voice of the Dalit women. And hopefully, in the future, as you said, Amrita, that we would bring in our women together from both the sides and try to have this conversation and build up this very important solidarity, as you pointed out. And
Yes.
I think this is very important that we do it. Looking at the kind of the historical interaction between the communities, both Blacks and Dalits, we have seen that last few decades we forget if we let go the last decade before that, there was a very feeble contact between the Dalits and the Blacks, and I would say it was almost negligible contact. And I met some Black Panthers in America, and they had this sort of an internationalist vision to take the Black Power movement across the world, and they interacted with the Cubans and they interacted with the people from Africa, but India as if was not in their perception as such, that they just had no perception that they have their brothers and sisters in America who are fighting similar fight for their liberation from the shackles of the caste. And I think as we think about together as to how we can walk together, as to how we can bring that solidarity alive, I think one of the ways, and Amrita has pointed out to it very nicely, that we have to build this kind of the forums where we have the dialogues, not only on the general topic, but also on the topic which are like very important and vital topics, like the feminist struggle, like our human rights advocacy, like the Black rights matter, Black lives matter. And similarly, India, in India, when this tag started floating around, Indians started, the Dalits started coming up with Dalit lives matter. And I think this kind of building the solidarity on the basis of very particular targets is very important. And I think one of these dialogue, the outcomes of these dialogues that we had so far is that we feel the acute need to have these dialogues on various levels, on the levels of activists, on the levels of politicians, on the levels of women fighter, the fighter women among us, and also at the level of students, at the level of teachers, and so on and so forth. Because later, as Babasaheb Ambedkar said, wrote to Du Bois, in 46 that, we had to learn so many things from you. And as Brother Runoko Rashidi made clear with one of the conversation we had, that the Black America has something to learn from the Dalit experience here, the struggle of Dalit experience here. And I think both the sides can gain a lot with this kind of deliberation, dialogues, and discussions. I think we have to move beyond only conversations now, and we have to really think about the forums. We have to think about working groups. We have to think about creating some kind of a presence together on various issues that our communities face. So I think as we think about marching ahead in the future together, we really have to develop this kind of a platform. Brother, what do you think about it, Paul and Brother Rock?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that you're right. Both of you and the doctor hit it on the head as far as what needs to be done. Because in my community, they're not aware of this romance that the Dalits have with Black people in America, this admiration, this connection, the parallels. They're not aware of that. And so I think one of the most important things that we can do is, like you said, have forums, educate, get those people, our people here in America, exposed to your struggle, exposed to your culture, because my friends don't know about this. They don't know about this. They don't know about the long history, about the Dalit Panthers and Dr. Ambedkar and his work, and how he outlawed untouchability in the Constitution. They don't know this wonderful story, because to me, that's what these two parallels represent. These two histories, your history and our history, is an epic story.
Yeah.
And us coming out of it is like the greatest story ever told.
Yeah.
The destruction of caste will be the greatest event on earth. I was reading the epilogue of the book Caste, the source of our discontents, or something to that effect, the title. But anyway, she was talking about looking at the world from the point of view of, like, this is the way I took it, like you're on the moon, or you're not on Earth, but you're kind of looking down at the activities that us humans are going through. And it's really, when you think about it, it's really incredible and mind-blowing that we have these type of systems of control in the first place. Because when you look up in the sky, you look at the stars, there's no limits. W.D. Farad taught us that the universe is 76 quintillion miles in diameter. That's unfathomable. He taught us that there are 10 trillion atoms in the universe. To me, what he was trying to show us in our culture is to get beyond the limitations of our petty thinking. And to me, like I said before, I think it was the last show, caste, racism, all of that is got to be classified as mental illness because they're so small-minded. And she was talking about in the book, she was talking about that, color, skin color is something that you cannot change. We're being oppressed because of biological laws that we can't even change. The color of our epidermis. How did that become a subject of oppression? The color of your epidermis is the reason why I don't like you.
Right.
And when we downplay it and put it in terms like that, it's like really stupid stuff. It's like, this is so simple, it don't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all.
It don't make sense.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how Einstein, when he came over here, he had just escaped the invasion of Hitler. Hitler was just made chancellor right after he left, and he saw the struggle of the black people in America and how he identified with our struggle immediately, and didn't think that this was something reasonable people should be doing. How can you call yourself a reasonable person and I can't drink at the same water fountain as you, or I gotta go this way and you gotta go that way, and you know, all of these foolish, little childish, petty ways. You know, it's childish. It's beyond. It's really, when you think about it that way. I mean, if you think of yourself as an alien watching us, and it's like, why are they acting like that? They could be living in peace and paradise right here on earth. You know, W.D. Farad told us to set ourselves in heaven at once. At once. And to me, that means that it's accessible. The Dhamma is the only practice that says that your goal is attainable while you live.
Very true. The paradise
and
on
I
the
think, huh?
The paradise on the earth.
Paradise right here, right here, right now.
Yeah.
In no limit of time is what he taught us.
Yeah.
We can achieve that. We can set ourselves in heaven at once if we get rid of the dross of our petty differences, our prejudices, and all of this stuff. It's just, you know, so I'm saying all of that to say that it's all about education.
Yeah.
We have to educate the people. We have to continue to talk. We got to have forums. We have to continue to interact to make this a normal, the new normal. What's the new normal between the blacks and the Dalits, which are both blacks? You know, sometimes it's kind of hard to say Dalit or black because we're all black. You know,
we are all blacks and we are all oppressed Dalits. So it's
right. We all oppressed. We're all outcasts.
Yeah.
You know, we are the outcasts. So, you know, I think, like I said, it's just about education. We got to continue to educate. We got to continue to hang out. You know, we got to continue to talk. Because when we make this the new normal, then it's easy. You know, if we talk for a minute and then we stop talking for a long time, you know, we got that long distance relationship.
True.
When you got a long distance relationship, you got to talk more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I think we just need to continue to educate both people. You know, our people, especially mine. My people don't, you know, except maybe the educated, you know, people that are keep their finger to the pulse. But my friends, they don't know. And so I know it's my job to make sure that I serve the cause by talking about it more myself. So.
I will just have one comment. You know, my very dear friend, my elder brother, Lama Rangdol. He is one of the first black lamas in the history, and my brother told me that the Black America, you know, is like our people there are like the drum beating communities. If you say something in Auckland, it has to reach to Philadelphia. If you just do something in Harlem, you know, it will reach out to the south. So he was saying that, you know, once you access one node of communication in the Black America, you be assured that the news will spread all over.
Yeah, over time, yeah.
So, you know, like we are beating the drums of justice here, you know, we are trying to bang it loudly, as loud as we can. And, you know, like you two gentlemen, you know, people like Lama Rangdol, people like Bruno Rashidi, and, you know, there are a lot of people now who are taking interest in it. I think the job of education, the job of awareness, I think we can expect in the future to increase by manifold. Brother Paul, what do you think about this?
I do concur with that. I agree with that fully, and that's what is happening. Brother Rock mentioned that that the system of slavery, oppression, and death doesn't make any sense, and that is so true. What it does make is dollars. And so back in the 1980s, there was a system set up in South Africa, apartheid. And that was brought to its knees as a result of a movement in this country and other countries to divest for companies in this country, United States. This is not interfering with the politics of other countries. So there's no need for Black people in this country to try to interfere with the politics of any other country.
Yeah.
Indian politics are going to be decided by the people of India,
Right.
without anybody trying to interject and meddle in somebody else's business. However, over here, we buy a lot of things. We purchase a lot of things. There is a consumer culture in this country, America. And so if we're going to buy things, we can ask those companies that we buy things from to not support oppression in India, to not support it. If they are supporting it, if we find that they are supporting it, we need to stop buying their products and divest in those companies that are doing business, that are oppressing our people in India. That's something we can do here without interfering in the politics of somebody else's house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're looking after our own house. If we can say that what is happening in India is wrong. However, if we are financing it, if we are giving fuel to it by financing it, by buying products and services from those companies that are allowing that type of oppression in their workplace, then we need to stop buying those products and services.
Yes.
And that's called divestment, a divestment movement, a divestment. And we can do that right now. We can do that right now. So if we hear that there is a company or some type of companies that is practicing caste oppression in India, and that company is someone who sells products here, I don't want to buy anything from that company. I don't want to buy products and services.
Yeah.
And in doing that, then I'm starting to divest my money, my support in a system that I say is corrupt. And this can spread as it spreaded in the 1980s with the divestment program in South Africa.
Yes.
And when it must be pointed out that the reason that caste slavery is so prominent is because it is profitable. It's profitable for people to be on top of a system. They're making money off of it. They're living in luxury as a result of the money that they make from a system of oppression.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what happens here in this country. Slavery generated a great amount of wealth in this country.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why it's done, because it generates wealth. It generates luxury.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. It makes dollars.
Yeah.
And once it stops making dollars, once it stops making profit, it crumbles, because the people at the top of that system are cowards.
Yeah.
They only want to live in luxury. And once
Yeah.
they see that they can no longer live in luxury under that type of a system, they will throw that system away. They will discard that system. It's divine to them only because it's profitable. Once it ceases to be profitable, they will give it up.
That, I think that is very important, as you pointed out, to the South African experience of apartheid, when the people questioned exploitation behind what was being sold in America. I think one of the problems in India at this moment is there are no diversity laws. So it's very difficult to determine which are those companies having the diversity. And the government never made it compulsory to know what kind of a diversity the private sector has, because if you look at the corporate India, it is completely hijacked by the non-Dalits, 99% of it. And the 90% of the wealth, as it is accounted in terms of the capital market in India, is in the hands of a handful of the few people. And there are companies which never respect the kind of the caste diversities. If you visit any prominent private company in India, and if you look at their higher echelons, their boards and their managerial structures, you will eventually find that 90% of them are occupied by the people who form the microscopic sort of a community in this country. And one of the things that we are trying to press it, we have to campaign in India is to ensure that the diversity laws are at least are in place, which are not there in place, and also ensure that there is no inbuilt caste exploitation in the company. And one of the things to know it is how many Dalits are represented in different echelons of that company, and there is no way we can know it. One of the attempts that was done was to provide a certificate from the Indian companies which are selling abroad that they are caste free, they are not exploiting, they are respecting the rights of the minorities, the rights of the Dalits in India. And I think our common friend Mike once suggested that if they can give a caste free certificate, that they are free from the caste exploitation, just like the coffee brought by it is free of exploitation of the poor Africans, like that. And I think one of the things that we can mutually work on is sort of this campaign where we really ask the companies which are selling their goods and services in your country whether they are respecting the human rights. And there can be a human rights check on them, and they have to certify that they are not practicing any anti-human rights activism, or they are if they are found disrespecting the diversity, their goods and services can be boycotted. I think that's a very good point that you have brought up there, and I think that is one of the issues that
Can I make a small point?
Yes, dear.
Like you just said about these, we need these diversity laws. I think, Mangesh, we, along with that, definitely we need those kind of laws. But along with that, we also need, a global dialogue on the right, on the selective interpretation and application of the minority laws. We have a lot of laws in our country. I think we have a lot of laws there also in United States. But if they're not applied correctly, they are ineffective. So we need to point out the fact that the selective interpretation and application of laws, this is the problem of hierarchy or hegemony. This is very important, I think, to address on a large, grandiose level.
That's a beautiful point. We have to find a ways to force the government to implement their policies. You are right, Amrita, very well there. So, when
we can make a lot of laws.
Yeah, but
okay, continue.
No enforcing mechanism, as you rightly said. And the social movements can do it.
If those laws are not there, if those laws are not there, they will be there.
Yeah.
If there are no laws, they will start making laws.
Yeah.
There was no diversity laws in South Africa either. There was no laws on the book. There is
no diversity law in India for the private companies. There is no diversity.
They will make them. They will make them. If you hit them in the pocket, they will make them.
Yeah. I think picking up from what Amrita just said, that's why the solidarity between the social movements are so important.
Yes.
It's so important that we cannot just believe in the legislative processes all the time, because the laws can be good, as Amrita said, that in America there are good laws. In India, there are good laws, but I think we need this kind of the power of the social movements to get our work done. And if the two social movements connect, if the two civil rights movements connect, they amplify their power by manifold, because that is the power of internationalism. I think that's one of the things that we can do, that we build a kind of a solid solidarity on the common issues that we can flag and work on them, and really enforce the government to respect the laws they have made. I think that's a very good point, Amrita. Thank you so much. That's a beautiful point. So, Brother Rock has talked about a very important thing, that we have to do this continuous education of our communities. As you said that, a lot of our masses still do not know what is happening in India. Similarly, in India, a lot of people do not know, a lot of Dalits do not know what is happening in America. Only educated and the social activists, they know. So we have to do your work here, and you have to do our work in there. And that's how we mutually, create that kind of an awareness, because once there is an awareness, it can lead to a lot of things that we would like to do. And I think when we talk about this, what we can do collectively together, Brother Rock has set my mind in the direction of a trinity of the principles that Babasaheb Ambedkar has given us: educate, agitate, and organize. So I think our future solidarity can be framed in this particular trinity of I would say transforming values like education. So we need to continuously educate each other on a regular basis, and we need to find a ways to have this kind of a conversation again and again on the issues. And I think on the agitational side, as brother said, that we can agitate on the on making our governments to really respect the laws that are meant for us. I think for the organization, I think in this era of social media, in the era of technology, where the communication barriers are falling apart, I would suggest that we can have a kind of a common web presence somewhere, where people from both the sides can look at it as a kind of an educating tool, as a kind of an agitational tool, where Amrit can write something, where you two can write something, where we can bring in all our people from both the sides to write something, put up their videos and put up their thoughts to it, their experiences of it. What do you think about this, having some kind of a common social media presence, starting with a common website?
Absolutely. And that's what we're doing now.
Right.
And you're talking about expanding that into a digital format, a digital platform where people from different schools can come together, talk, exchange ideas, and become friends. Because there are some people who are trained in different areas, or there are people trained in different areas who have knowledge and expertise in areas that others do not.
Yeah.
And then we can combine those talents and those skills to solve for the problem, for the overall problem. And at the same time, we're friends. We become friends. That's very, very important, that we do become friends, that we trust each other. We have a common goal, and we work together online. We could do that online, especially now. You mentioned let me see, educate, agitate, and organize. Those same words were said by Kwame Ture, and you would know him maybe as Stokely Carmichael.
Carmichael. Stokely Carmichael.
Yes. Okay, Kwame Ture. That was one of the phrases he used over here for the All African People's Revolutionary Party.
Right.
Yes.
These exact words?
Exact words. Exact words. They do go back to, I think, about 1920s, and then there was some mention of them prior to that. So it does have a history. Those words do have a history for oppressed peoples, and so it's nothing that he just dreamt up. It's a historical phrase, except we use that same phrase over here.
Right.
So yeah, we can get like a website. There are people who can build websites and have a global Sangha or a global community. Runoko Rashidi, who you spoke with just the other day, talks about a global African community, which is exactly what you're talking about. A community of people around the world. You see?
Yeah. That's a very important point.
So we're all on the same page. We just have to implement it. We have to start to do those things. And in doing those things, we can do what Brother Rock was talking about people have to be educated. We can speak to people one-on-one. That's a very slow, laborious process. If there's a site, they can go on that site 24 hours a day, around the clock. So they can be taking in information from that has been said once, and that can be disseminated hundreds of thousands of times, if not more, if it is digitally recorded, if there's a site where people can go. And by site, I mean website, because we have to have a global presence, not just a global presence, but a digital presence. Right now, the world is on lockdown. So it's very difficult for us to communicate with people one-on-one in our own cities. Okay. So if we can do this digitally, we can take advantage of the situation that we're in right now, adapt, and just make it work. And there's people right now who have the expertise to do that, who might be, listening to us. They could be listening to you, and they can say, I can help out in doing this. I can help to set this up. I can help design this.
Yes.
We also have to include other people, writers, poets, artists, musicians, pop artists.
Yes.
Include them, because a lot of people look to them, listen to them, you see. And if they are genuinely interested in continuing this work, they can contribute. You see.
I think you spoke about the multi-layered interaction between the communities. Now we have a writer in Amrita who regularly writes. She is a fantastic writer, and I think her experience as a writer will be so valuable and important here, because I think we can ask Amrita what's her experience of reading the Black feminist writers. She has already drawn very important between them. Amrita?
Yes, I can add a few points here. We can also have joint reading sessions of our native Black and Dalit literatures, especially women. We can have a comparative the comparative study of the literatures of both Dalits and Blacks, and also Dalit and Black women, simultaneously, side by side. Or we can set up another website or something like online magazine, that website or session, where we can talk simultaneously about both the literatures. I think we should concentrate on our today's generation, both in America and here, because we people like the generation I belong to, we have not suffered the direct humiliation of caste system. I suffered caste system when I joined my bachelor's. My parents suffered. They have been suffering from by birth. So our generation needs to be sensitized about these that how racism, it's another form of slavery, although it has been abolished legally. Even untouchability has been abolished here. The caste system still persists. So that sensitization of the young minds, to capture them, that is very important. And for that, I would suggest, joint reading of the native the literatures, where to be specific, I'll talk about women-related literature. In the oral literature, it's very important. It was rather very important in the American African, in women community who were slaves. They call it matrilineal African oral culture, which is in the form of folk songs, or the stories which are based on farm labor that contains elements of social protest in very muted forms. That those we can compare with the initial literatures that we have of our women, like in the Bhakti movement, that the religious poetry, which are called abhangyas, some very low caste women, they wrote those poems, in which they criticize the caste system. So we can compare that poetry, and we can also talk about like Thedi Gatha. We can talk about Thedi Gatha. It's a Buddhist scripture in which the poems by the Buddhist nuns on the female monks, they have been mentioned. Women, they from all walks of life, they were allowed in the sangha. And after they joined the sangha, they've expressed their what do you call, the mental elation or the joys that they felt after leaving their lives of drudgery, the domestic and the sexual slavery, that life, when they left behind and they came out of it, the joy that they experienced, they've expressed all those in the poems. We can compare those kind of poems. Also, I mean, those poems they also help to correlate us the similarities in our oppression. That is very important. We should take strength from the similarities in the oppression. That will actually provide recognition to our struggles, and also the visibility to our struggles. And also it will I think provide the confidence and pride to our women more. Yeah. And if you give me 2 minutes, I'll just read out 2 small poems.
Please share poems. Please share, Amrita.
One that I would like to read is, it's not a poem actually, it was a speech given by Sojourner Truth in 1851. She was a black slave. She says, that man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or give me any best place. And I, a woman, look at me, look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And I, a woman, I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And I, a woman. Then there are just 2 small poems by Swarupa Rani, who is a poet here from India. And I think the poems originally are in Telugu. I'm not sure whether I'll be reading the English translation. Just few lines from 2 of her poems. One is, when have I lived my life myself? At home, male ego has slapped me on one cheek. The second one, all eagerness to fill the little one's stomachs. There sits the husband, ready to drunk her sweat as arrack. Wow. These emotions, I think they're very relatable. The sufferings that our women and their women, the experience, which is because of, I think, the caste system and poverty and race and poverty, which are correlated. So I think we can take up, these kind of literatures. We can discuss them. We can have online magazines. We can have more and more global dialogue on these things. We need to aware our people about our histories.
That's very beautifully put, Amrita. I think one of the things that we can immediately start is a kind of a reading group, as Amrita has proposed, and get people to really read something once in a week or once in 15 days. I think that would be a wonderful idea to set up a reading group, starting with poetry from the both sides. I think that's an amazing input, Amrita. I think when we talk about these platforms to interact in terms of our communities, we also cannot lose sight of the cultural side of it. Because I know people here who are very fond of listening to Nina Simone, her beautiful songs about oppression and liberation, and I think
about whom? Nina Simone.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Isn't it? And I think there is a lot of poetry being generated here in the Dalit sphere, which will be so easily communicable to people up there. And I think Brother Paul has some internet issues. maybe we can wait for him, because I think we started this dialogue with this interaction. Um, one of the things that we were talking about is setting up a media where the community, the different people, activists, the artists, the poets, the writers can find a way to communicate with each other. I think we have to set it up in terms of a digital presence very immediately, so that there is a kind of a highway of interaction between the communities. So I would like to ask Brother Rock as to, when you are a meditation teacher and you teach Buddhism and the Buddhist meditation practices among the communities. Do you see a scope of generating a kind of a spiritual platform, to quote unquote spiritual, among the communities there and communities here? Because I know that you do a lot of healing work, and through your mindfulness program. So can you please throw some light on the possibilities in this area as to how we can create the programs of healing the deep wounds that slavery and untouchability has caused to our people? And definitely Babasaheb Ambedkar, when he converted to Buddhism, he has this grand vision in his mind to heal the communities and really build the communal experience. Brother Rock.
Um, so you're asking me how through like the work I'm doing that we can continue to bring all of these things to light and continue to kind of spread the Dhamma and spread the awareness of the struggles and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because you are actively engaged in meditation teaching practices, and you also talk about the Dhamma all the time. So do you see that the kind of solidarity, as Buddhism is coming up so rapidly back in this country, and a lot of people are now into the meditation practices and so on and so forth. They study the Dhamma, and similarly your initiative of helping people with the mindfulness practices. So you see a possibilities of having uh, interaction based on some kind of a spiritual elements.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's inevitable. I think there's been a surge in this whole concept of mindfulness. I don't really use that word. I'm not a fan of the word mindfulness.
Me too, me
But
too.
but yeah, I think that there's a mental health crisis, in the world. And the only thing that really works, and this is why there's been a surge of mindfulness practices, is things like meditation. Meditation is one of the essential tools to help people align their mind and body, to get settled, to get centered, and to clear up mental illnesses and emotional problems and stuff like that. And it's so universal that you don't have to call it any particular name that's identified with a culture. It could be totally, it's a colorless concept. And so when you talked about last week, you talked about the Buddha having the vision of a colorless society.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about Dr. How you say your name? How you say your name, Doctor?
Dr. Ambedkar.
Yes,
Yeah.
Amrit, Dr. Amrit.
Okay. When she was talking about women and the women's struggles, and I was thinking about the caste system and how masculine dominated that whole concept is, and how becoming a colorless society also means becoming genderless, where there's not one phallic, force at the top forcing the feminine, chalice nature down, because that's a part of the oppression that's in the system. That's a part of the nature of the system, to be masculine dominated, and to oppress the feminine. Because really, when you think about it, compassion, the things that the Buddha taught, compassion and goodwill and all of that's human beings get in touch with their feminine nature. So when we talk about eliminating caste, we're talking about getting in touch with our feminine nature that balances us as men and women. We have to get both, balanced in both masculine and feminine nature. But we also have to we have to have a egoless mind.
Yeah.
You know, and that's only accomplished through the practice of meditation or the Dhamma in general. The meditation is the general practice. The Dhamma, the teachings, is really how you're really taking those teachings and putting them into action when you meditate. And that's why that's a good starting point. You know, when you start people off with meditation, you know, my goal is to eventually talk to the people that are more serious and get them to understand what they're really doing. And that's when you start talking about the Dhamma. So it's a prelude to a greater, you know, a greater reality, the greater teaching of the Dhamma. Which, you know, that's why I teach meditation, because it's a great place to start. You know, so to answer your question, yeah, I think that over time and like we talked about educating people, you know, yeah, I think those the spiritual part and the historical part automatically marry each other, because you always have to teach the origin of where something came from. And as you do that, you bring people in even deeper. You know, they become students. And I think that's the right approach. I think that we have to create a climate where we're all looking ourselves as students and not, you know, I'm up here and you're down here, because that's like the caste system. You know, we got to get rid of that. You know, so.
So that's very nicely explained. Unfortunately, Brother Paul's Zoom has crashed and he won't be able to join in, it seems. He is trying to get into the Zoom room, but it seems that it's crashed. But we are also nearing to the end of our discussion, because we have already finished, you know, completed 1 hour into our discussion. So I think before we head out, we'll
Can I make a small point?
Yes, before we head out, small points to Amrita and Rock, brother, we conclude today's session. Amrita.
Yes, shall I speak first?
Yeah, please.
Rather 2 points. You know, I think Sir Paul has rightly said that if we want to eliminate, you know, these two oppressive systems, we need to talk about women liberation side by side. You know, whenever any one group or a community or a nation wants to subjugate or suppress, you know, any other group, community, or a nation, I think they do two things. One is the class oppression. You know, they break the economy of that group, community, or nation. And second is they withhold the rights of women, because two things. Because one, women, they are culture, you know, bearers of the society. They carry forward the lineage of any society. So this is very important. You know, whenever we talk about you know, we talk about oppressions, we have to, you know, simultaneously talk about women oppression as well. The second point, I think we also need to you know, translate our literary works, especially I think the regional works, because our people are very, you know, they're poor, they're uneducated, they don't know English. So we need to translate the Black literature from English to the regional, you know, the languages here, and the literature here in the regional language, that also needs to be translated to English. Another thing we can do is that we can have a, you know, joint study for the interpretation of the.
Yeah, go on.
Yes, shall I? Okay. The next point, I think we should also take joint studies, you know, for interpretation of linguistic behaviors of Blacks and Dalits. What, right, the native languages, you know, because languages is you know, it's a part and product and vehicle of culture of any group or a community. So we can also compare the, you know, these native languages of both communities. Yeah.
Welcome back, Brother Paul. We have been just trying to wrap up with our concluding points, and we can take a lot of these things. There are a lot of takeaways offline, but now as we are online and having this last conversation in this series, we would like to invite your concluding remarks on, you know, on conversations. So Amrita has given very important conclusions, and Brother Rock is about to go, and then I will finally wrap it up.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I've enjoyed speaking with you in this series, in these 5 talks, and I'd like to continue our conversation, and we have to find a way that we can start to implement the things that we've been talking about. So you and I and there are others, Brother Rock and others, who know about these topics and are very interested in these topics, know about them to some degree, and are very interested in them, and want to see it spread. And so these talks have been our way of putting forth a effort to inform other people, let other people know, and it just grows from here. It grows from here. We can implement those things that we spoke about earlier. A website, set up a website. We have to get a website. And on that website, we can share ideas, post ideas that are relevant to both communities.
Yes.
And then we can build bridges between those communities, between our two communities. And what people determine or decide to do will be organic. It will be grassroots. So there can be people working on different fronts with different types of ideas, bringing their own talents and expertise to the table to do things as they see fit.
Beautifully.
There doesn't have to be any big I's and little U's.
Yeah. Very beautifully put, Brother Paul. Brother Rock?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on something that Dr. Emra Paul said about women. W.D. Farrar taught us that a nation could rise no higher than its woman. And so she was right on point when she said that, you know, one of the things that oppressors do is they attack the economics and then they attack the women. Because if your women is brought low, then that's our foundation. You know, we as men need the woman to be strong and to be protected and to be loved because she's the bedrock of the family. And so I just wanted to say that I really am grateful to be here to see this happening. You know, Paul has been working on this for a long time, the work he's been doing, and he's been sharing things with me along the way. And I'm very grateful to you, Paul. I just wanted to say that for helping me be here to talk. And these talks to me are historical, and they're the trigger that's going to, you know, that's a part. Now we got a little help because of that book that came out to really put the spotlight on this root problem. You know, W.D. Farrar always taught us to look at the root of things, to understand the nature of things. And I think caste is the root of our discontent. It is the root of the problems in the world. And if we can pull that root up by its roots and replace it with compassion and everlasting humanity, you know, love and compassion and humanity and things of that nature, then we can live in peace and paradise. And I think this is the beginning. You know, the Bible talks about there was a war in heaven, you know, and I think we're engaging in that battle right now. You know, W.D. Farrar called it the battle in the sky. And I think this is it. This is the final battle. And if we can get this, when we get this uprooted, we would have done a great thing for society and for humanity as a whole. And it starts small like this. This is not, it may be small, but it's big. You know, and like Paul said, having a website where we can start to educate ourselves, share these parallels in our culture, which to me is just, it's beautiful, you know, to see those parallels. You know, that's something new. That'll be something new to a lot of people. It's new to me. I mean, I'm still seeing it myself, and it's like a beautiful thing. So I want to thank you for allowing me to be here.
I think to me, before I hand it over to Amrita to finally give concluding remarks and conclude it, I think this has been a wonderful interaction. I know Brother Paul for the last 10 years, and we have met and we have been exchanging a lot of ideas about our communities. And I think this is an opportunity to connect with my brother Paul, and also at the same time talk about the issues that are both very near and dear to us. And we could do it in a series of 5 talks is, I think, a wonderful thing that can be done. And I think as I see it, lot of people have been watching the conversations and interactions, and here in India, a lot of people are look at, as I said, as an inspiration to the Black movement there. And I'm sure that the day will come where our brothers and sisters from the Black America would take a lot of inspiration from the Indian, Dalit brothers and sisters. I think that day is not far where we can talk about our communities together in terms of our common plights and our common goal of the total emancipation. I think as Brother Rock has said, though the beginning is small, it's full of vast potentiality that we cannot even measure at this point of time. So I would like to especially thank Brother Paul for taking this opportunity, this time to talk, and inviting Brother Rock, whom I know now through the series of this interaction, wonderful human being, to have this on our discussions. Amrita, who is not well, in fact, and but she is so enthused with the possibility of this conversation that she chose to sit and not to lie on the bed, and really take this caravan forward. So I feel very grateful to Amrita for joining today, and she was the part of the first conversation, and she joined the last. So I would hand over this baton to Amrita to really maybe she can conclude with a nice poem to conclude this.
Thank you, Mangesh, for such lovely words. As you said, the beginning of all things is small, So, what does it mean to be human? This question, it sits at the core of human rights. To be human, it has specific implications, like the human self-awareness and the actions taken to uphold human dignity. These are what gives the concept of humanity a special meaning. Human self-awareness and human actions, they determine the interplay between individual thought and language and the wider society. It is our actions, as human beings that deliver a lot of things like economic security, the right to education, the right to free association and free expression, and which creates the conditions for protecting expression and encouraging bold thinking. When we, abandon the efforts to uphold human dignity, we forfeit the essential meaning of being human. And when we waver in our commitment to the idea of human rights, we abandon our moral principles. What then follows is folly, duplicity, corruption, tyranny, and the endless this stream of humanitarian crisis, that we are facing today. Human rights, they are the shared rights. Human rights are a common possession. When abuses, they are committed against anyone in any society, the dignity of humanity as a whole is compromised. It is only when the rights of any individual or rights of people of any region, they receive our care, our protection, that humanity can achieve a shared redemption. But the understanding, of this truth, it still eludes us. Why so? Could it be that we are too selfish, we are too lacking of courage, or perhaps we are insincere, we don't live, life enough. We con ourselves into imagining that we can get away without discharging our obligations to institute justice and fairness. We fool ourselves, in thinking that chaos is acceptable. If we truly believe as human beings in values that we can all identify with, or we all aspire to, for example, the recognition of truth, as Buddha says, recognition of truth, an understanding of science, or an appreciation of self, or a respect for life and faith in society, then definitely we all need joint efforts to eliminate the obstacles to understanding, to uphold the fundamental definition of humanity, to affirm the shared values of human lives and other lives, and also to, to acknowledge the symbiotic interdependency of human beings and the environment. A belief in ourselves and a belief in others, a trust in the humanitarianism's power to do good, and an earnest recognition of the value of life. I think these form the foundation of all human values and all human efforts. So before summing up today's intriguing session, I would love to read a poem titled Humanity by Naomi Pal. Humanity isn't a race. It's not a people or a person. It's something you ask yourself. Humanity is a question. Will you give? Will you share? Will you play the game fair? Will you sacrifice? Will you go beyond and above? Most importantly, will you put your trust in love and only love? We can try to answer the question of humanity on our own, but without faith in each other, we'll spend our lives vainly seeking in the crowd alone. So that's the end of today's, this last conversation on race and caste. And I'm thankful to all the my lovely speakers, co-speakers, my guests. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I also thank all the viewers of Ambedkar Karma who have been supporting us so actively on our Facebook Live page. And I request them to please continue to support us. This means a lot to us. So thank you for joining us. Good night and Jai Bhim to all.
Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim.
Okay.